WWT presents Partner Spotlight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Partner Spotlight. My name is Albert Valdez, a Cloud Business Development Manager here at WWT, and I'm excited to lead a discussion that's happening across nearly every client account we have, and that's what to do about virtualized workloads in light of what's taking place in the industry today. Virtual machines have become fundamental building blocks of modern IT, and it's no secret that Broadcom's acquisition of VMware has left those building blocks on uncertain terms, which is why we have two great guests today to walk us through the landscape. So from Amazon Web Services, we have Keith Groom, who leads AWS's Worldwide Modernization Center of Excellence. And I'm happy to also have Todd Barron with us, who is a colleague here at WWT, where he serves as a technical solutions architect. So Todd, Keith, thanks for joining today. As I mentioned here in the intro, the industry's gone through so much change in just a short period of time. So Keith, can you level set to help us understand what's happened, what's being impacted by that change today, and how things will continue to unfold over the foreseeable future?
Yeah, great. Happy to do so, Albert. I'm really excited to be here to talk with you. And I've been talking to partners all around the world. I just recently returned from Zurich, Switzerland. I spoke at the summit there and also in Johannesburg, South Africa. I was in London and New York talking to partners and speaking on this topic. And it's on, as you said, it's on the mind of many customers. First, what's happened is since Broadcom has acquired VMware, there's really three fundamental things that they've changed. One is they've changed their product strategy. They really consolidated products down to a set of four primary bundles. They've changed their licensing strategy so that they've moved from perpetual to subscription licensing, and they've changed their pricing strategy. And we've also heard in the news the dramatic price increases that some customers are facing. And then fourth, they also ended the AWS ability to resell the VMware Cloud on AWS offering. So we no longer can add new customers to the VMware Cloud offering, and those customers that are on that offering are able to continue to the end of their subscription. So all of this disruption is created a lot of confusion by customers, and it's really disrupted customer strategy about moving to the cloud. And additionally, you'll recall at VMware Explore, the CEO of Broadcom has actually talked about repatriation to private cloud workloads. So this is just the latest in a long line of disruption that's occurred in the market that IT leaders are having to confront and face. And AWS has been working really, really hard to build a plan and strategy. And we have a lot of demand from customers to say, hey, how can you help me move from VMware to AWS? And that's what we've been doing.
Thank you, Keith. So before we dive into some of the ways that AWS is making this transition easier, I wanted to ask you, Todd, about the WWT perspective. So almost every client we engage with has skin in the game here. How have you been advising them? What are some of those trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, thank you, Albert, and thank you for inviting me to this. We have customers when we're talking to them, they're really kind of in three different phases. They've either recently renewed, in which case they have some time really to make changes. Maybe the sense of urgency isn't there if they just went through a renewal cycle. Then you have others that are somewhat maybe midway in the cycle, in which case they do need to create a plan for what comes next. What are they going to do? And then you also have those that are about to renew. And this is where they have the pressure they really are going to have to do something with the renewal, right? But they also still have some opportunity to look at cloud native and potentially move off of the reliance on the VMware software, for example. And in all of these cases, customers need to create a plan for the future, and the plan should take advantage of cloud native. So, prior to the industry changes, you probably could have afforded to keep kind of kicking the proverbial can down the road, but that's really no longer the case. You now have to have a plan, and you have to execute on it to really optimize on the results you are going to see after taking on this new challenge. You basically can't avoid it. You're going to have to do something. And the idea is you need to be thoughtful about what it is you're going to do. And, another thing is the entire operational stack of VMware should be considered when you're doing this planning. This industry change affects your people, your processes, and your technology. A lot of times we just think about it at the tech layer, but there's a lot of other capacity and issues that come along with that, right? And for one thing, you need to expand on your cloud operating model to really support these changes and embrace the change to be successful at it. And this is one area where we've worked with a lot of customers on. Let's really focus on how can we turn this challenge into success via creating a model by which you operate underneath it that affects your people and your processes and, of course, the technology. And the outcome of this is you're going to come out of it with the experience you need to really scale and get the economics in mind. So that's really kind of the big things with the three different phases they're in. And really the bottom line is take a step back, look at where you're at in the cycle, and come up with a plan that's going to work.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, some great input. Keith, what about from the AWS perspective? What is AWS doing in this regard?
Yeah, no, that's great. And Todd took the words right out of my mouth. Look, it's really two visions for the future, right? It's continue and remain on VMware or move to cloud native. Those are two very important strategic decisions. And a lot of customers have a board level decision to really focus on driving cloud adoption. And we want to be their cloud of choice. And our view is that there's three parts of this issue with VMware, exactly as Todd mentioned: people, process, and technology. So on the people side, we have launched new training courses for VMware admins to learn about AWS and to learn about how you translate how I did things in VMware and how would I do things on AWS. So that change management, how do I rewrite my documentation? And we're adding to this, we're adding a new training and enablement for customers and for partners about different use cases of VMware so that you can map out what do your people need to be skilled in and what do you need to change from a process perspective. Now, the third bucket is the technology piece, and we think that's actually in some respects the easier part of it. We've got services like MGN, which can very quickly move VMs to AWS with no code changes to the application. But the broader problem, we think, is actually the change management as opposed to the technology. And so, you really need to dive into the architecture of their environment and really work through how can they adapt that to AWS. So we've done a couple of things, producing additional prescriptive guidance for customers around how to map your VMware workloads to AWS. We've created new financial incentive programs to help incentivize customers to move to AWS. We have partners working with our ProServe organization on their automated runbooks, and we have an assessment methodology to help customers identify that current stack so that we can really build the right migration plan for them. And this is where I think WWT really comes in, because you guys can come in and do that assessment work. You can map out that existing infrastructure and build that roadmap to a native infrastructure on AWS. So we want to work with you guys as you work with your customers to make sure you're implementing like our best practice around security and governance and compliance.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Keith. We all know that simply moving virtual machine workloads from on-prem to public cloud without optimizing them is also not a cloud native approach, right? This is something we commonly refer to as lift and shift. So Todd, question for you. How are we aligning our strategies to meet clients with where they are right now, but also preparing them for where they want to be in the future?
Yeah, great question. And so, if you look at absolutely everything that you're doing with virtualization when it comes to the people and the process and the technology, it can be daunting and a lot of times can lead to analysis paralysis. We all hear about it, and you hear about the stall, right, about in migrations. And to address this, one thing I recommend to my customers is to start with an experience-based approach. So that's where we will work with you to pick some key workloads, bring together all the stakeholders that are involved. It's not just the the IT director, right? It's everyone from the users of those workloads to the operations team involved to leadership who has to lead these teams. And then you work through the entire end-to-end process of migrating them to cloud native technologies. And you can do this over a period of weeks. And then you take that experience you gain from doing that several week process. And when I say several, usually 6 to 8 weeks involved, right? And you use that experience to scale to additional workloads. And that gives you the momentum you need. Because, as I mentioned, you can sit there and think about it for a long time. And if you don't actually do anything, you don't get momentum. And that's why I really suggest you go about this process. And a key item to address when you're gaining the experience is to pick from a sample of workloads that represent a target technology stack that are common to your organization. We have methodologies and tools in this process, but you may find some workloads that are better in containers, or you may find some that use other SaaS offerings in conjunction instead of installing the software locally. Or you may have some that you do want to do lift and shift, and you really, based on the way it works and your licensing and other things, that's the best option for you. But that's where we work through in the experience and figure out what can we do, what makes the most sense, and then once we've identified that, what can we build? Let's do one of those quickly and learn from that. And then really the last great benefit of this approach is it works for customers, no matter where they are in the cycle. I talked earlier about they need to move now. Maybe they have some time. Maybe this is somewhere out down the path, but it lets them learn right now and then plan for things within the next month, the next 6 months, or even the next year or more. But all this forms the foundation of what they need to know to be successful in that planning.
Yeah, if I can add, I think you're spot on, Todd. We're totally aligned with what you said. This idea of going out and doing these experience-based acceleration workshops where you're bringing in that diverse set of stakeholders and you're proving out what's possible is absolutely a proven approach. And so I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing that. We totally agree with that. And the other dimension to this, I think, is you don't have to do it all at once. This is not an all or nothing. And so at the assessment phase, decomposing your estate into components that say, this is relatively easy stuff to move. It's important to get started now. And you said it earlier, working backwards from your subscription renewals is what we see most commonly our customers are doing. We're working with some very large customers now, and they've got different subscriptions ending at certain times, and we're effectively doing is moving these workloads in waves to AWS. And so it doesn't have to be done all at once, and that sort of makes it a little more consumable, and you've got time to skill up the teams on AWS services having come from. So I think you've outlined that approach of break it into pieces, move what you can now, do it in phases. And I wouldn't get too caught up in all or nothing commitment. It's important to move fast, particularly if you got impending renewals and you want to avoid having to write a check for that renewal. You can get started very quickly, and we've got the tooling to move very quickly while you get into the more complicated workloads, as you indicated.
So I want to switch gears. I certainly don't want to leave this conversation without drilling into AI and how it's going to impact what we've discussed so far. So Todd, how should viewers be thinking about AI in the cloud?
Yeah, great. When you may first think about AI and think about VMware and migrations, you may be like, well, how are these two related? In reality, we're talking about using cloud native technologies. So when we go through and do one of these workloads and try it out and put it into cloud native, we do this with the eye towards integration with the AI services that AWS offers, along with several of the solutions that Worldwide is rolling out on a very frequent basis. Right? We are all the time building new solutions that have desirable outcomes for our customers. And so when we build these workloads, we will ensure that what we build seamlessly integrates with these different technologies, really wherever you are in your cloud native journey. Things can work really at any level between data and compute, network, etc. And the really good part about this is that you don't have to wait months or years. So having to move to cloud native, being that your strategy, you are not having to give up, well, I need to also do AI. Well, guess what? You can do them both at the same time because cloud enables you to spin up GPUs and to spin up AI workloads and to use services immediately. You don't have to wait really any time. You can go log in today and work with AI services. So when we build out these modules, we build out these workloads using the experience-based methodology I talked about earlier. We will migrate key workloads to cloud native technology that already have the capability to leverage these AI services and solutions out of the box. So, really the bottom line with AI and doing the cloud native approach is we'll build them in such a way that you can start right away, not have to wait months, quarters, et cetera, to acquire hardware, do processing. You can actually focus on what is the business value. Let me try some things out with these new workloads. It really opens up a lot of capability that you may not have realized previously.
Thank you, Todd. So we're running up on time, but before we leave, any parting action items for viewers in regards to how they should be positioning their organizations or maneuvering these uncertain times? I think, Keith, let's start with you.
Well, great. I do want to comment on AI if I can. There's two things I'm really excited about AI that's going to contribute to this VMware migration. One is accelerating application refactoring using Gen AI, and our product is called Amazon Q Developer. We've just launched a Q transformation for Java. We have Q transformation for .NET coming. We believe we can reduce the time to refactor applications by 75%. So more to come in this space. We'll be talking more about this at reInvent. So we believe Amazon Q for developers is going to make a game-changing effort to refactor applications, accelerate, lower your costs, and help you move quickly. And then the second use case of Gen AI is being able to rewrite your documentation, whether that's a run book or compliance documentation or security documentation that's related to your migrations. We believe using our technology in Gen AI, you can rewrite documentation a lot more quickly to help you speed up and accelerate and complement your migration. So two important use cases that are available today that you can start to play with and start to leverage. Look, for me, we tell customers, like, it all starts with doing a comprehensive assessment. We need to understand your current state from an infrastructure and a licensing. So one thing we didn't talk about is most of these VMware customers have a very large Microsoft licensing footprint. And our assessment approach helps you optimize those licenses so that you can determine what you can and cannot bring to AWS to optimize your long-term costs. And then over time, there's that option to even get off Microsoft licensing. So that's a really important part, is your Microsoft licensing needs to be considered. And we really want to deal with that in the assessment phase to understand the right pathway for those licenses to optimize that environment. So start with the assessment. And we, again, recommend decompose your estate, move what you can now while you work on a longer term plan. And by the way, the assessments are at no cost. So customers can get started right away with AWS and with partners like you guys.
And to get to your question, Albert, about, do we have any really things left over, in regards to how they should be positioning their organizations and maneuvering through these times, it can be very challenging time given the licensing term changes and how that affects the people, process, and technology. And what you really have to do is separate the problem into data-driven solutions and tackle the challenge one piece at a time, starting now. That's really a key thing, is you cannot wait. Regardless of where you are in the cycle, you should start working through this now. And the key to being successful at this is to take an iterative, experience-based approach that shows business value along the entire journey. You need to strive to be thoughtful, methodical, and successful while we keep an eye on the future on what's coming down the road.
Very well said, Todd. Thank you. That does it for this episode of Partner Spotlight. Thank you to Keith and Todd for taking time out of their busy schedules to have this important discussion. And thank you to our viewers as well for tuning in here on WWT.com. If you'd like to learn more about the WWT and AWS partnership, please visit, excuse me, I'll probably start that one over again. If you'd like to learn more about the WWT and AWS partnership, please visit the partner section of WWT.com website. We have lots of great resources surrounding AWS offerings and services, and also resources on how you can put them into action. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions moving forward. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.